Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. V back with another casted game of Age of Empires 3, and welcome to Anatolia for another rendition of the search for the worst. Now, let me explain what I am talking about. Last week, I casted a high-level game featuring Sweden, and I asked you guys if you thought that Sweden post-patch was the worst civ in the game, and I got quite a few answers, and the one that stuck out to me the most was this one right here, saying that Japan was the worst civ in the game. So Greenhorn, challenge accepted. I found the first high-level Japanese game that I could get my hands on, and that is what we are going to be studying today. So in the north of the map, playing in the color blue, as Japan, we got Michael GT. I think he's around 1900 elo, so certainly very, very high level. But he is going to face some stiff competition, a potential disaster matchup for Japan, because in the south of the map, playing in the color red as Russia, we got Moonshine, who has quite the terrifying Russia. This guy, very, very good player. Starting with the market, interestingly enough, as Russia, while it looks like Michael is starting with the trading post as Japan and is sending 300 food as his first card. This is kind of becoming the popular Age 1 play for Japan, right? We are long past the days where 300 food was considered horrible and awful and never send it ever. Now it's actually kind of viable for Japan, but I don't know. All the times I've seen it, it still doesn't feel great. It still feels kind of slow. It still feels kind of inefficient, but I might be wrong about that. I think the last time I casted Japan on this channel was like a year ago, so I'm certainly not an expert, but he is now sending the 300 food card, or already has sent it, excuse me. Meanwhile, distributism coming in for Moonshine. Let's take a look at his deck. A very, very standard Russia land deck. Yeah, I mean, he does have quite a bit. Man, there's a lot in Age 2. He's even got the Treaty of Moskvsk. I don't know what that means. And he gets Royal Huntsman, and he allows him to train Royal Huntsman from the Royal Embassy. I would be shocked if we actually see this card, but he's got both Cossacks, he's got the Poruchiks, he's got the Strelet, excuse me. I don't know why I always put the A on the end. It's kind of weird. But meanwhile, we do see the wonder coming down from Japan, the Torii Gates, so not the Shrine. This is going to be the one that ships the Samurai, and I kind of like that he might be able to use that Samurai. I mean, that Samurai could definitely help with any early Cossack pressure that comes from Russia. Those guys have an insane bonus versus Cav, and we'll have to see how well Michael gets out on the map and really starts putting down as many shrines as possible. I think one of the things that's going to be a bit of a challenge for Japan in this matchup is that Russia can put on a lot of very quick pressure, and Russia may not go directly for the town center. They may just try to box Japan in, you know, take down the outward shrines, and then maybe get out some blockhouses, really just squeezing Japan into a hole, because if Japan's not allowed to spread out and get those shrines and get those hunts, you know, covered up, they really struggle with that early eco. But on the flip side, what I've noticed is that if you let Japan boom for like 8, 9, 10 minutes, they can become incredibly scary. Though I doubt Moonshine is going to allow for such a thing. 5 Shrine Wagons coming out from Michael, and it'll be interesting to see if he immediately follows that up with another 5. Maybe goes for villagers, but he can't skimp on military units for too long. I like the start here going with the stable. I think Naginata Riders will be a nice response to anything that Russia does. Though if Moonshine decides to go with Mask Rusket, that could actually prove to be a little bit difficult. Of course, China always been known for their slower start. Okay, they are not a civ that can just immediately have a very early power spike. They need that time. And so 5 more shrines on the way, Naginata Riders being trained. So definitely looks like Michael is going to spread his tentacles, no joke intended, across the map. And meanwhile, what is Moonshine sending? He's immediately sending 700 coin. Are we going to be seeing a Russia FF here? I really haven't looked a lot at Russia since the patch. I do know that they got a couple of buffs. But, I mean, there's no way Russia stops playing H2, right? Oh, is Moonshine going to lose his Explorer here? These Clefs, they're not so good in melee, but he is really low on HP. Gonna pick up 100 XP. Oh, that's such a good card. Oh, man, that's gonna get him, like, almost halfway to his next shipment. And Michael not quite getting there in time, but might be able to pick up the Explorer instead. Yeah, I think he's definitely gonna take down this Explorer. And what is the next card for Russia going to be? He's putting down a lot of infrastructure here in the middle of the map. He's got one blockhouse, a stable, and a second blockhouse going down. And, oh, it's because he sent the 700. No, he's sending the 700 wood. Where did he get all that wood? My goodness. That's a lot of wood. That's 700 wood worth of resources. I guess he hasn't really been making military units, so it makes sense. Early raid here by the Naginata Riders. They might take out this villager. They're definitely going to delay this blockhouse, and they're going to get the Vil. So a really nice pickup by Michael. And these Naginatas are pretty expensive. You don't want to be throwing these away willy-nilly. They're not like the Cossacks, which are a lot more, you know, you can just throw them into the grinder because they're cheap. They take up one population. These Naginatas, 200 resources apiece, and 100 of that is coin. So definitely wants to conserve as many of these as possible, but did get the Vil kill, did delay the blockhouse by a solid 15-20 seconds. So Michael doing what he needs to right now. Okay, he's not allowing himself to be very easily contained, which I like. Now going to try to take on these Ruskets. I still don't think that's a very cost-worthy fight, even though these guys are weaker than your normal muskets. Cossacks now coming out 3 along with the 5, so we're definitely seeing some sort of timing here from Russia. And I kind of like this better than the immediate 5 Cossacks. I really like it because Japan is such a hard civ to raid because they don't really spread out over the map with their hunts and they have a safe coin mine guaranteed. So you're not really going to be able to dive in and pick off any straggling Vils. So choosing to invest more in your eco, more in infrastructure, and then pushing later on with a lot more mass, I think that's a good adaptation by Moonshine. Putting out a forward house, and oh no, we're gonna have a nice catch of the Naginatas here, and this is a lot of free HP being taken away. A nice catch by Moonshine. Good micro, though, by Michael to get 4 of his Nagis away, but those Cossacks are being so irritating, and there's so many trailing, he can't afford to stop and fight. Maybe a bit of a mistake there, and he might lose all 4 of these cavalry. And that is a huge loss. That's 500 resources down the drain. And he really doesn't have much to show for it. He might have, did he kill that one Vil? I don't know if he actually ended up killing that villager, but he certainly had to pay for it. And now the shrine harassment is going to begin. And this is maybe where I kind of agree with Greenhorn that Japan is like a really, really powerful vehicle that just takes forever to build up speed, right? It's like the acceleration on Japan is horrible. But their potential is still really good. I still think Japan has more mid to late game potential than someone like Sweden, and certainly someone like Inca. But man, are they just, oh God, it's like booting up an old desktop, these guys. Japan is the dial-up internet of Age of Empires 3. Except they're a lot more reliable. And now we have Strelets being added and so many Cossacks, 4 on the way as well. And I love the heavy cav emphasis. And he's even getting down a trading post, researching Stagecoach as well. So definitely going to be wanting to pick up 1, 2, maybe all 3 of the remaining posts in his area of the map. And there's just not a lot from Japan here, right? I mean, what has he sent? He's sent both of his shrine wagons. Or no, did he cancel one of his shrine wagons? He sent a shrine wagon. He sent 4 villager. He sent diplomatic intrigue. So, and I think he went with the Japanese isolationism. I mean, these Ashis are going to be quite good against the Cossacks, but there's just so many of them. And with the added Strelets, it's going to make it a bit hard for him to just easily get into melee and not take bonus damage. And I don't know what this group of Cossacks is just doing out here on the edge of the map. Maybe protecting from raids, but 16 Cossacks and a decent mass of infantry. And the thing that's really got me worried about Japan here is that like map control is completely in Moonshine's favor. He has, you know, the trading post. He has clear advantage of most of the hunts. And I mean, the fear that I was conveying at the beginning of the game is starting to be realized here. Japan feels very boxed in. Look at how close these shrines are to the home base. Now, granted, they do have they have animals on all of them, and I would love to see him maybe shrine up a couple of these animals here, but this is definitely not where Japan wants to be, right? They want to be spread out over the map, get lots of vision, and get lots from that economic bonus from the shrines. And now that New Order Regiments is coming in, this is such a good card. 10% to recruits and Strela in both HP and damage. That is such a good card. Oh my god. I feel like we sleep on how good that card is, actually. And it does upgrade Poruchiks as well. I mean, a card that upgrades 3 units all at once. And it's a double upgrade because it's HP and damage. Oh, goodness gracious. Russia is not as weak as people like to think they are. I know Russia's still kind of on the lower tier, but if anybody responds to this video saying that Russia's actually the worst, you're wrong. I'm sorry. There's no way Russia's worse than Sweden or Japan or Inca, which I think is going to be the next one on the search for the worst. That Civ is in desperate need of help. But we'll have to see. Ashi's now going to be getting engaged here. He does have a solid amount of them, 27, and the Cossacks are quite far away from the main army. And it looks like Michael might be going for a bit of a pincer here, bringing his cav around. I like what he's doing here. Oh, I would have preferred if he had engaged with the Ashis here. He's kind of giving Moonshine an avenue to connect with the remainder of his army. Whereas if he had blocked with his Ashis here, the Cossacks wouldn't have had a good way to come in and join up with the infantry that are here. But now out come the sentries along with the Ashigeros and the Naginata, and this is what I'm talking about. Look at, they have a clear path to retreat, and now the cavalry is going to be getting engaged along with the reinforcing infantry. But there are a lot of Naginatas, there are a lot of Ashigeros, and they are being reinforced by Daimyo Mototada. So this is a very strong Japanese army. And we do have to remember that Russian units are quite weak, but these Naginatas going face first into the Ruskets and now into the Cossacks. That's a lot of anti-cav damage, and there's just so many Cossacks left alive, and these are now upgraded Ruskets. A couple of Strelai on the fringes trying to take out the Ashigeru. But I think the sheer mass from Russia is going to be enough to hold it. Daimyo Mototada making units. Oh man, but look at how quickly those Naginatas fell apart. And this is exactly the kind of fight Russia wants, right? This prolonged Age 2 combat. And yeah, I lost a lot of units, but that's what my units are made to do. And your units are expensive and hard to replace, so I win. And is he going to lose his daimyo here? Oh no, it's caught training Ashis, and the Ashis are going to get out. But 5 Ashi to lose your daimyo is not a worthwhile trade, and the Ashis just get killed immediately. And this is starting to look very precarious for Japan. Though maybe Moonshine making a bit of a mistake there, pulling back, or maybe he just wants to take out these shrines. That's totally cool. I think he might have been able to get away with pushing in there, but I mean, containing Michael even further, I think is definitely a good alternative. And these Strelets could not be arriving at a better time. Going to hold these Ashis. And the remaining Cossacks are going to be falling here, but now look at this. 4 trading posts, stagecoach upgrade, all on food. So the amount of infantry that Russia is going to be able to get out is basically going to be endless at this point. And I don't necessarily know what Michael can do to stop it. And this is again where Japan just feels really lackluster, right? If they're not able to allow the boom to fully blossom, they just start to feel really, really lame. Oh man, apologies to all my Japan mains out there, but man, your Civ is hurting. And they got the Dutch Bank, which it's so weird seeing a Dutch Bank with a Japanese flag flying over it, but that does exist in the game. And this infantry mass, and I'm terrified to see what Moonshine currently has queued, because I bet he's like triple queuing. No, okay, he's going up to Age 3. That's interesting, because this is always something I kind of go back and forth with Russia, and maybe some Russia mains in the comments can let me know. When do you know to go to Age 3? Because obviously, Age 3 Russia, not their strongest age. They're definitely more of an Age 2 oriented Civ. But is this the right call? He's immediately, look at that, veteran recruit, veteran Strelet, and veteran Cossack being slammed down basically simultaneously. That is... Oh man, I rip Michael, and 7 more Cossacks on the way. And I mean, he's been massing Yumi to deal with the Ruskets here, but once these veteran Cossacks slam in, I don't even know if he needs the Cossacks at this point. He's got Clubmen. And I mean, these Yumi are still going to do well against the Russian infantry, but these guys now have a card and the veterancy upgrades, so. Man. I love Japan. It's such a flavorful civ, right? It's got so much uniqueness to it. And I feel like if Moonshine had gone for something more FFE or semi-FFE, I think Michael would have been in a way better spot, but I also think Moonshine was way too smart to let that happen. And this is exactly how you have to counter Japan. You have to pressure them at that like 7-8 minute mark while the economy is still not in full steam. And I've made this mistake so many times playing as Dutch because I just sit back and also boom, and I think to myself, well, I'm not getting pressured, I'm doing great. But then Japan gets into H3, and you have to deal with like 8 flaming arrows and 40 upgraded Ashigeros, and it's utter nonsense. But to get there is just such a struggle. And now, I mean, this Russia ball is just going to immediately engage. Look at that, he doesn't even care, just throwing his Cossacks in. Micro, what is it? Not needed. And there's so many Cossacks, he can fight the clubs and the Yumis at once. The Rusket's just going to dump on these Naginata. And I'm starting to think, you know, maybe Naginata aren't as good of a unit as I remember. Because they're going down very, very quickly. And now the villagers are going down, and that is the game. And that was a one-sided beatdown. And honestly, I don't know if this is a fair barometer for Japan, because this is probably one of the worst matchups Japan could have. But maybe it's best, you know, when we're judging if a civ is the worst, maybe it's best to judge them at their worst. And I didn't really see any avenue for Michael to even get out of this once he lost map control, once the pressure hit. But really well played by Moonshine. Obviously, he knows how to play against Japan. Very efficient build. Guys, follow me to the post game. All right, folks, here we are in the post game, and it is looking very dire for our friend Michael GT. He lost in resources by about 3,000, and it might look like he was ahead in military, and he did have a 1-unit lead, but when you look at the units killed, it is just so lopsided because that final fight he was against, you know, veteran units with an extra card in case of the infantry. And he just was never able to break out of the contain that Moonshine put him in. And when we look at the villager count here, very, very steady for both players. But we do see Russia start to take the advantage here. Okay, those batches of 3, when allowed to pay off, they are such a nice bonus. And yeah, I mean, just Japan not able to keep up with their economy. And when we look at the military unit population, a really hard spike for both players. But again, this is kind of what Russia wants, right? These spikes are not abnormal for them. So to go from 62 to 32, that's fine because Michael went from 55 to 4. Oh, whoa, that's awful. Oh man, yeah, this is why I love looking at the post game because it just puts it in such stark detail. And then, I mean, this final fight, 67 versus 58. Moonshine's at 56. Back down to 15 for Michael. And that's when the Fortress Age really started kicking in. But guys, let me know. Okay, you've seen Sweden, you've seen Japan, both helmed by 1900 ELO players. Which one's worse? Or is this unfair, right? For you Japan players that want to defend your civ. Did I pick the worst possible matchup? Let me know in the comments below. But guys, I'll be back next week for a special Thanksgiving themed video. Until then, have a great day. Have a great life. See you later.